Some HOAs are nightmares, but mine took the crown when they declared fishing a felony. You heard that right. They slapped me with a $500 fine for casting a line in the community lake, a spot my family had fished for 15 years before these tyrants seized control. They didn't know I was a retired real estate attorney who sold my firm at 48 for a fortune. With time to burn and a score to settle, I didn't just crush the HOA. I bought the entire lake, turned it into my private playground, and threw weekend barbecues that roasted the board hotter than my grill's best steaks. If you're watching from Texas or Florida, drop a comment below. I know you despise HOAs as much as I do. Tell me which states got the most folks battling petty neighborhood overlords like I did. I hung up my legal spurs at 48 after selling my real estate law firm for a sum that guaranteed my wife, Lena, and I a worry-free life. We settled in Lakeside Estates, a posh enclave with tidy homes, sculpted lawns, and a shimmering lake that was my personal Eden for fishing. Lena, a pediatrician, wanted proximity to her hospital, and I was sold the moment I saw that water. Fishing was my sanctuary, rod in hand, sun painting the horizon, a balm for a mind scarred by decades of property feuds and zoning wars. For months, life was idyllic. I'd rise at dawn, grab my tackle, and lose hours by the lake before the day began. Neighbors waved, their dogs pranced, and all seemed right. Then one morning, a pompous envelope was plastered to my door. Inside, a snooty decree from the Lakeside Estates HOA accused me of unauthorized recreational activities at the lake and demanded $500. I read it twice, certain it was a prank. Fishing? Unauthorized? I'd been at it thrice weekly since moving in, with nary a whisper of complaint. The next day, I stormed the HOA office, decree in fist, ready to unravel this farce. That's when I met Opal Sinclair, the HOA's queen bee. A silver-haired matron in pastel finery and pearls, she oozed authority. "Mr. Carter, I expected you," she cooed, her smile as warm as a snake's belly. "Please, sit." When I questioned the fine, her lips tightened. The HOA governs all shared spaces, Mr. Carter. Fishing clashes with the refined image we're crafting here. Complaints cite odors, stray hooks, and, frankly, the riffraff it draws. My pulse surged, but I kept my cool. I've fished there for months, no issues. No signs ban it. And the handbook I got when we bought our home says nothing. Opal slid a binder over, pointing to a murky clause about pre-approved activities in common areas. When I pressed for its origin, she admitted it was added 2 years ago, after most residents, including me, had settled in. "Rules are rules," she snapped. "The fine stands. Find a hobby that suits our standards." I left seething but resolute. I refused the fine and demanded a hearing at the next HOA meeting. A week later, I faced the board, arguing that fishing wasn't banned. The lake was a historic fishing spot, and their refined image was a flimsy mask for snobbery. The packed room hummed with agreement from some, but Opal was a stone wall. "The board's decided," she declared, dodging a vote. "The fine stands. Further defiance brings harsher penalties." As I exited, fuming, an older man intercepted, me in the lot. "Bernard Clark, retired judge," he said, offering a firm handshake. "Lived here 20 years, before Opal's reign. This is wrong, and you're not alone." Bernard revealed Opal's crusade to ban low-class activities. To inflate property values, he dropped a bombshell. Years ago, as a judge, he'd ruled against her in a political spat, and she'd nursed the grudge ever since. As we talked, I spotted a young man, Jeremy Foster, a local reporter, scribbling nearby, eavesdropping discreetly. Bernard nodded. "He's been poking into Opal's community uplift nonsense. Worth a chat." I thanked him and headed home, anger morphing into strategy. They thought I'd cave after one clash. They didn't know I'd spent my career dismantling real estate tyrants. This wasn't about fishing anymore. It was about crushing bullies who rewrote rules for their own gain. I dove into research. My old battleground. With my daughter, Alia, a law student with Lena's grit and my cunning, we tore through the HOA's history, bylaws, and public records. Alia, home for the weekend, grinned over our document-strewn office. This is better. Then law school, constitutional law meets small-town power grabs. We profiled the board. Opal, a failed politician turned HOA despot. Walter Garrison, a rigid ex-military vice president. Nancy Wilson, the gossip secretary whose son, ironically, loved fishing. We found sloppy rule changes, including Opal's. Vague clause, often unnotified to residents. A procedural sin. Another violation notice arrived, jacking the fine to $1,000 for noncompliance, delivered by Walter himself, stiff as a drill sergeant. Comply, Mr. Carter. Mrs. Sinclair's serious about standards. I smiled, filed the notice, and kept digging. Bernard warned that Opal was strong-arming the board to target me and my supporters with petty fines. The next day, I visited the HOA's County Records Office, reconnecting with Rachel Simmons, a land registry veteran. Miles Carter versus an HOA? I'm in, she laughed, pulling the lake's records. Her find was gold. The lake wasn't public or HOA owned, but abandoned private land from a bankrupt developer, untouched for 20 years. The HOA's control was a sham. As I left, I caught Jeremy Foster's nod from another desk. He was on the same scent. Back home, Alia uncovered a resort developer, Sunrise Resorts, cozying up to Opal, eyeing the lake for a luxury project. The next day, I fished openly, baiting Walter's camera-toting patrol. Instead of arguing, I chatted, learning his fishing. Ban stemmed from a childhood trauma, his grandfather's drowning. Cracks in the board's unity appeared. Neighbors whispered support. One lamented her kid's fear of the lake under Opal's rules. Lena reported hospital gossip. Opal was fining anyone who backed me, from gnome owners to wind chime enthusiasts. Bernard called with a tip. The lake was headed for a tax auction soon, a quiet affair most missed. My plan crystallized. Opal's vendetta had handed me a wild card. If the lake was unclaimed, I'd claim it. I phoned Axton Wolfhart, a property acquisition guru. Miles, back in the game, he teased. Intrigued by the auction, he agreed to help. As Opal piled on fines for hedges and bird feeders, I fished defiantly, joined by brave neighbors. Alia's social media page rallied support without poking the bear. Jeremy's recreation feature kept the pressure on. The lake wasn't just my fight anymore. It was ours. Jeremy's snooping made Opal twitchy, a bonus in my book. One evening, as I cast lines at twilight, the HOA planted no fishing signs and safety cameras around the lake. I filmed it all, noting they'd staked their claim on land they didn't own. The next day, Walter and two board cronies cornered me at the water. "Mr. Carter, you're trespassing and defying posted rules," Walter barked. "We've got proof and we're ready to sue." I kept fishing, cool as a breeze. "Seems like a mix-up on property lines, Mr. Garrison. My research says I'm in the clear, but thanks for the heads up." Neighbors gawked. An elderly couple set up chairs, munching popcorn at the showdown. Walter, sensing the crowd's shift, retreated with a growled, "You'll hear from our lawyers." That evening, Axton called with a bombshell. "The auction's on, and the lake's up for grabs." Lakeview Development tanked in the housing crash, leaving the property in limbo with unpaid taxes. The county's auctioning it to settle the debt. When I asked about rival bidders, he paused. "Here's the kicker. Sunrise Resorts, the outfit buying up your area, is sniffing around. They've got big plans." My gut screamed Opal was in bed with them. A quick dig confirmed Sunrise's game, turning wild spaces into ritzy, members-only playgrounds. If they nabbed the lake, it'd spike property values, but lock out everyone but the elite. With Alia's help, I met Victoria Hricks, the local business association chair, at a cafe far from Lakeside's prying eyes. Over coffee, she spilled, "Sunrise has been wooing the town council, pitching a luxe waterfront club. Opal's their cheerleader, claiming a 30% property value boost." When I probed for Opal's cut, Victoria leaned in. Word is, she's, lined up for a cushy consulting gig once it's greenlit. No proof, though. The auction loomed, and the HOA turned nastier. They hiked my fines to $5,000, threatening a lien on my house. Supporters got hit with bogus citations. One night, after fishing late, I was shoved into the lake by a shadow who vanished. Bruised but unbowed, I wasn't hurt. But the threat was clear. Lena fretted as she toweled me off. Miles, I'm with you, but this is getting dangerous. I reassured her, but quietly upped security. Cameras around our property, a guard for lake outings, and Bernard's law enforcement pals keeping watch. Axton confirmed our auction papers were tight, but dropped a curveball. The HOA's bidding. 2. Opal's been schmoozing their bank for funds. They could outbid me if they went all in. My grandfather's wisdom echoed. Step back to leap forward. I was ready to vault over Opal's schemes. The day before the auction, the HOA's lawyer sent a pompous notice of legal action for my violations and unpaid fines, delivered publicly for maximum shame. I grinned at the courier and filed it away. That night, Lena, Alia, Axton, and I honed our auction plan. Bernard's intel pegged the HOA's budget at $150,000 without a full vote. We'd push Opal to max out, then top her. Victoria called with a snag. Sunrise was bidding, with deeper pockets than us. What do they know about the property? I asked. She hesitated. Opal fed them info, but it's shaky on boundaries and water rights. The auction unfolded in a drab county office, a low-key affair with high stakes. I arrived with Axton, spotting Opal and Walter in the front row, smug as ever. A slick Sunrise rep checked his watch nearby. Rachel, from Records, flashed a sly thumbs up. Jeremy slipped in, notebook ready. The auctioneer droned through minor lots before hitting our prize. Item 23, ex-Lakeview property, 8.5 acres with lake, starting at $20,000. I bid instantly. Opal glared, countering $30,000 lows. Sunrise jumped to $40,000. The numbers climbed. Fast. At $100,000, Walter whispered frantically to Opal, likely warning of their cap. She swatted him away and bid $120,000. I stayed cool. $130,000. Sunrise hit $140,000. Opal, sweating, called $150,000, smirking my way. Showtime. I nodded to Axton. $160,000. The room froze. Opal's face blanched, then reddened. She leapt up, hissing with Walter, who shook his head. Shockingly, Sunrise's rep piped up. We withdraw. The auctioneer scanned the room. $160,000, going once, twice, sold to bidder 42. The gavel slammed. I owned the lake. Opal charged me, livid. You rigged this. I'll have it overturned. Walter stepped in, stern. Mrs. Sinclair, you blew past our $150,000 limit without approval. I warned you. Jeremy scribbled wildly as onlookers buzzed. Outside, the Sunrise rep offered a partnership. I brushed him off politely. Victoria joined us, smirking. I tipped. Sunrise this morning about Opal's dodgy data on water rights. They want a cleaner deal. Bernard called, roaring with laughter when I shared the win. Lake owner, time for a party. Another call followed, from a blocked number voice. Masked, think you've won? Enjoy your lake, for now. I reported it to my cop contacts, knowing it'd be tough to trace. That night, Lena, Alia, and I toasted our coup. I owned the lake, faced a furious foe, and had a plan to school the HOA. But my real aim was bigger. Dismantling Opal's empire and liberating our community. Within a week, Axton finalized the lake's transfer to me. I had it surveyed, revealing it was larger than the HOA claimed, stretching beyond their grasp. I erected a sleek fence with private property access by invitation signs, yanked the HOA's signs and cameras, and installed my own security. The HOA fired back, whining my fence violated their aesthetic standards. Axton's crisp letter shut them down. Private land, no HOA jurisdiction. Opal sent a building inspector, who found zilch, then tried ramming through new rules to curb my gatherings. Bernard and allies swarmed the meeting, stalling her. Alia uncovered Sunrise's plan to drain half the lake for condos, restricting the rest to elite members. Victoria confirmed Opal's promised stake in the profits. This wasn't about fishing. It was about saving a community treasure. To mark a month of ownership, I threw a lakeside barbecue, inviting Bernard, Victoria, Rachel, and supportive neighbors. Jeremy got a press invite to deter HOA meddling. The sunny Saturday buzzed with grills, fishing stations, and joy. I haven't felt free here in years, an elderly neighbor whispered. Opal made the lake feel like a prison. An hour in, Opal, Walter, and Nancy stormed up, snapping photos. Opal waved papers, shouting, "This violates noise, gathering, and structure rules. Disperse, or I'm calling the cops." I handed her my folder. "This is private property, Mrs. Sinclair. Here's the deed, survey, and laws backing my rights. The police? They're briefed and see no issue." Walter shifted uncomfortably as Opal's face twisted. Bernard stepped up, voice booming. "False. Police reports carry consequences, Mrs. Sinclair." Opal, fuming, retreated with her posse. The crowd cheered and the party roared on, with guests begging for the next bash. The next day, my inbox overflowed with neighbors craving invites and sharing HOA horror stories. I announced a community lake day, open to all but the board. With Victoria, I brainstormed a fishing pier, swimming area, and wildlife signs, with local businesses eager to sponsor. Opal's Standards campaign fined picnic goers for gnomes, and mailboxes, but it backfired, fueling rebellion. Jeremy's articles hinted at Opal's Sunrise ties. My cameras caught HOA goons snooping and a thwarted attempt to poison the lake. Lena, watching the sunset, nailed it. This isn't about fishing. It's about stopping bullies who weaponize rules. I squeezed her hand, ready for the next round. Opal thought my picnic was the finale. She didn't see my real plan, a campaign to shield the lake and topple her reign. The morning after Lena's words, I unleashed Freedom Lake, a social media hub for community joy, not confrontation. We hosted lake cleanups, kids fishing lessons, and ecology talks, led by Alia, Home for Summer. Her free legal clinic empowered residents to fight unfair fines. Neighbors, fed up with Opal's iron grip, flocked to us. Jeremy Foster's articles, fair but damning, spotlighted Opal's selective rules, shady finances, and Sunrise Resorts ties. Victoria's business allies sponsored our events, boosting their PR. Even the town council noticed, with members joining. Our lake days, and frowning at the HOA's antics, Opal's counter, her own social media, was a flop. Her posts, obsessed with property values and sterile suburbs, paled against our vibrant photos of neighbors bonding. In a delicious twist, Nancy Wilson's son, a fishing fanatic, joined our volunteers, teaching kids to cast. Nancy's attempt to yank him sparked his public rebuke. "Why stop harmless fun, Mom?" The knockout punch landed when Nancy misfired an HOA email to residents. It exposed Opal's plot to punish troublemakers, her glee at making examples and, worst, unauthorized payments, including a consulting fee to a shell company Alia traced to Opal. The leak ignited the community. Walter, rattled by the financial mess and his own liability, contacted me via Bernard for a secret meet. At a quiet cafe, he confessed, "I wanted order, not this. Opal's gone rogue, hiding payments I can't explain." With his quiet nod, we audited the HOA's books, uncovering a trail of fraud. Victoria dug up proof Opal was promised a cut of Sunrise's profits for delivering the lake. Confronted, Opal called an emergency HOA meeting to squash malicious rumors. The packed room crackled with tension. Opal ranted about radical threats to property values, painting me as a villain. But when she opened the floor, Expecting loyalty, residents fired back with pointed questions about money and Sunrise. Walter, silent till then, stood. As vice president, I must report serious financial irregularities. He laid out Opal's sins: secret spending, targeted fines, and Sunrise collusion. Opal's face crumpled as she tried to shut it down, but the crowd wouldn't budge. Jeremy's pen flew, capturing her unraveling. By the end, motions for a full audit and a special election to oust the board passed overwhelmingly. Residents thanked me as they left. Victoria shared that Sunrise had ditched Opal after her lies surfaced. That night, I told Lena and Alia, "The fishing festival's next weekend, bigger than ever. Time to end this." Opal clung to power, defiant but fading. The election, set for the festival, was her doom. The Freedom Lake Summer Fishing Festival dawned bright, a community triumph. Businesses donated gear and food. The council sent reps. Jeremy's paper and 2 other outlets covered it. Nearly every resident showed up, the biggest gathering in years. Axton secured permits and Pros handled security. The lake gleamed with fishing stations, ecology booths, food stalls, and a pavilion. For the vote, Bernard ran for HOA president, vowing transparency and fairness, backed by respected locals. Lena ran a health tent. Alia's legal booth buzzed. Opal arrived with her lawyer, scowling. "This violates covenants, Carter," she hissed, waving papers. "We're suing." Axton stepped up. "Private property, Mrs. Sinclair. Permitted and legal. Sue and face harassment countersuits." Opal snapped, "I made this community. They'll see strong leadership saves their homes." I pointed to the laughing families. "This is community. People, not fines for wrong flowers." Her lawyer dragged her away as onlookers stared. The festival soared. Kids reeled in fish. Seniors mingled. Neighbors bonded. Walter, sans Opal, apologized and detailed financial sins to the election team. Nancy's son led a youth contest. His mom wavering. A vision board captured residents' dreams. An accessible pier. Nature walks. A butterfly garden. Cleanups. Old photos showed the lake's joyful past, like a 1970s dad teaching his daughter. Now a grandma with her grandkids here. The election kicked off mid-afternoon. Bernard pitched a resident-first HOA. Walter exposed past wrongs, community voices, shared hopes. Bernard's slate crushed it, ousting Opal. His first act, a bylaw overhaul for transparency and limits on board power, passed unanimously. I took the stage. As Freedom Lake's owner, I'm placing it in a conservation easement, ensuring all residents can fish, explore, and gather here forever. Cheers erupted. Victoria outlined business support. Rachel presented the easement papers. Jeremy announced his book deal. As lanterns glowed at dusk, we celebrated not just my win, but our community's rebirth. Opal fled amid a county probe into HOA funds. Walter joined the Lake Committee, redeemed. The festival became annual, inspiring nearby towns. The lake thrived, with water monitoring, school trips, and native gardens. Nancy's son managed it, his passion unleashed. I changed too. What started as a fishing spat became a mission for community and conservation. Lena teased my busier retirement, but it felt right. Alia chose community law, inspired by our fight. I kept hosting barbecues, teaching kids to fish, while Lena launched a health program. One sunset, Bernard joined me on the pier. "I thought you were just a stubborn retiree," he laughed. "Glad I was wrong." I cast my line into the golden water. Sometimes you buy a lake to save what you love, but the real win is building a community. As kids giggled and families strolled, I knew the true victory wasn't owning the lake or toppling Opal. It was reclaiming our neighborhood's heart from those who'd wield rules like clubs. So, if an HOA's choking your life, grab a fishing rod, a good heart, and a sharp plan. They're not the law, and you just might outfish them.